Right, we got Bruce, we got the two Bruces, we got Riz, we got Frank, we got Bob, we got Ian. People are just coming in. Jean, Lois, Kevin. Track meeting. Okay. And it's 5:30. All right. Close. I know we had I think about 20 something participants. So and then of course I sent out the connection yesterday. Okay, so we are recording this meeting, and I have my wrong glasses on, but that's okay. Hopefully I'll see everything. And let's see. Okay, let's get going. So sharing screen. Okay, hopefully everybody is seeing. I'm going to get all your faces in on my other one. Hopefully everybody is seeing this screen, which I believe you are. And all right. Okay, so welcome to the last workshop.
Is being recorded.
Our last workshop for January 19th, and we're going to go through recommendations. I did send everybody the link to the other 3 workshops, and we're hoping to, I'll go through what the next steps are after this, at the end of this workshop, but you just have me tonight. I don't have any special speakers, but anybody can chime in and be a special speaker if they want to. I'm happy to have special speakers from all this task force that's attending this workshop. We are up to 21 participants, which is awesome. And we're going to go through recommendations. When I go through recommendations, I'm going to highlight them, what the chief ones are. I'm not going to go into hyper detail on recommendations, because those will eventually form themselves from these higher end viewpoint recommendations, and you can see those, and I'll share those with this task force as we're developing them over the next month, and then of course you'll see them in the draft plan. But so anyway, so we're going to go through recommendations. We'll go through the layout. I would really love your comments on how I'm approaching the layout. And then roles and responsibilities going forward, because I want to inform the plan. I want to inform people who read the plan with expectations of roles and responsibilities to implement the plan. And it would be really helpful to get your insights on this. So get over to my cursor here. So principal recommendation that came out of our, this is going to be kind of a summary of our last 3 workshops. The recommendation number 1, focus on the mission and implementation. So we don't get confused by, there's always a lot of people trying to inform the plan, trying to inform the process, but we want to stay focused on the mission and the implementation as we started it at the beginning. And that is to evaluate and recommend methodology to restore the airline trails economic significance and value to the 12 towns. So it's not necessarily all about infrastructure. It's not all about say just economic development. It is the whole package. And so that's what we're doing. We're building a whole package as best as possible to provide guidance. And then over here are the goals in more detail about the plan. And then recommendation number 2, conservation. Now this came up as sort of a hot topic on a couple of our workshops because people were concerned. And I think we still need to talk this through with a few people and just make sure that everybody's on the same page. But the goal on this recommendation for conservation on the trail is to protect the Airline State Park Trail primary asset, which is its natural and scenic beauty and all of the assets that are formed around the trail. And particularly there are areas on the trail that, as you can see from this map, we have a lot of green area, and then there's these the natural diversity databases. There's pockets of incredible scenic value. So scenic view sheds. There's incredible natural resource, I would say, experience sheds, not view sheds, but there are also view sheds. And so that is, when people talk about the trail, that is one of the key things that they're coming to the trail for, is the natural beauty and the appearance. They're not about going from town to town in an urban center. This is about being out in nature and riding an incredibly beautiful, quiet landscape. So it's all about protecting. That's when we're talking about conservation. How does that support the trail? Recommendation 3 is look at for that economic payback. The trail, remember we talked about economic growth. There is potential here for increased user utilization of this trail by new users, both in-state and out of state. There's a regional storytelling here that we can take advantage of. And you're going to have economic payback. So look for it. If you invest in the trail, you're going to get probably double, triple back what you invest in terms of your time, energy, and dollars. So next one would be recommendation. Remember the infrastructure workshop. This is recommendation for safety and continuity planning for the user in maintenance, infrastructure, so that the trail user experience is, if not identical, at least very, very similar, for its travel way, its dependability on surface, the connections where there are difficulties in installing connections, such as the Putnam-Thompson section. How do we do signing as a backup plan until the connection can be made? So those are all the planning tools that we'll be looking at and making recommendations on. And the next one is recommendation is to collaborate for cost savings. You're going to find cost savings by collaborating together in also with infrastructure, with marketing, with planning, with offering what the towns can showcase as a region. From my marketing and economic development experience, and we tried to do this with this project where we were trying to get an outside viewer perspective. So I've done some background analysis because we weren't able to do this. UConn had a wonderful program where they would have people come in and view your town with the perspective of what's it like to visit it. Because while we may all love the trail and we know what the assets are of the trail are, and while you may love your town, all of us have an affinity for our quaint towns, and me included. You sometimes don't see it from the outside person's perspective because you're so in love with it, you know? And so sometimes somebody might come in and say, I don't understand where anything is. It's just, I actually had a very good friend of mine who rode part of this trail and said, it got real boring real fast. And I won't say where, but I said, oh, but if you had just gone another mile, you would have been blah, blah. And like, oh, but I didn't have any signage and I didn't know where I was. And so, and this is a person who rides their bike all the time and is doing marathons and stuff. So they always used to come to our, we have our Connecticut RC&D has a Tour de Farms bike ride, and they always came. And that was one of the insights that they had. So collaborate for marketing for that outside viewer. And then from the user perspective, make it easy to find the region online. Make it easy to find the 12 towns and the airline trail, and avoid those multiple clicks. You know, got to avoid those multiple clicks because people get real bored. You know, fast-paced media these days. And we do want to encourage young people to come and to use the trail. And then recommendation, be a good host. Help the visitor and the trail user find their way with wayfinding. The Hop River Trail Alliance is taking a lead on this, where they're proposing to put in for money to do a wayfinding plan. We're doing that after this plan is adopted, but one of the recommendations will be to work with them, to collaborate with them, so that we can look at that larger region, that airline trail region and the influence region. And then another recommendation is to review your town zoning uses and setbacks from the trail. Because one of the reasons is that if you're looking at your trail and all of a sudden you put a, you know, a smelting plant right next to the trail, it's probably not going to make people particularly want to go on that section of the trail. So don't kill, as my old boss used to say when we looked at when we were doing planning, don't kill the golden goose, you know. Take a, so we'll be looking at town by town zoning uses, but it's also important for the towns to go ahead and take a look at it from their perspective. And then another one is to consolidate. A recommendation is to consolidate to make an impact. So this is the sort of another build out of the 126 members on this task force and growing, representing the 12 towns and influence areas. We have the airline park trail towns, and then we have other stakeholder groups. There may be others. Please email me with other people that you think should be listed in this so that I can put it in the plan, in the appendices, and so people know who to contact. Okay. And next, I think this is my favorite recommendation. 12 towns working together can achieve great things and find big money. And this was the one I showed you guys last night, where this tiny little bridge, because there's not many crossings on the Connecticut rivers, Portland, the East Haddam Bridge, and the Baldwin Bridge in Old Saybrook. And this section here is $55 million worth of funding. So if you look at the road suitability going back and forth, and they've built a sidewalk just recently, built a sidewalk from here to here, but that's not a bikeway. So there's a need for planning and a need for you guys all to work together so that you're getting what you need on the airline trail and in your towns to connect to town centers. That's going to need advocacy. And one town at a time cannot do that. You have to work together. So working together, you can achieve great things to help each other, town by town, connect to your town centers. And you can go hunt the big money because it's out there and you can go advocate for it. So based on the recommendations, those are the big ticket item recommendations. Do we have any comments and insights that I can record? Anybody have any thoughts before I go into sign of the final details? Anyone? Monique, still muted. There we go.
Okay, how about that? Better?
Yep.
Okay, how's everybody? Thank you for this overview. Just two comments. One thing I will say makes me nervous when I see pavement as a recommendation. So I don't know if that's an offline discussion, but that in terms of user feedback is not what we hear at all. So maybe I've interpreted that slide incorrectly.
Right. Yeah. We're not planning. There's no plans for pavement.
Okay.
Except where it may be in a town, it has to go through a town center and there's pavement.
Absolutely.
No, okay. There's no plans for pavement.
Okay, because and then the second piece is, in terms of feedback, I have a lot of data because we solicit feedback from runners on an annual basis. This past year's runners represented 22 states and 3 countries who are really making our region, and the race their destination. So I can happily give some feedback when the time is right if you want user feedback.
We would love user feedback. Absolutely. It helps inform the plan and it helps inform the towns. That kind of user space on the trail is really impactful for understanding future services and economic growth and the need on the trail, needs for infrastructure on the trail. So that'd be great.
Great.
Anybody else? Have any thoughts?
Gene, this is Jim from Hebron.
Jim,
Yeah, how are you tonight?
good.
Yeah, I played catch up, and thank you for having sent the links for the previous meetings. Very much obliged. Had a little difficulty technically getting in last go around. Hey, Gene, I was wondering, would CTRC&D be willing to serve as a central point of contact for model zoning regulations? I was thinking when you mentioned the term setbacks, is there a template perhaps that the multi-town entities could use?
Yes, that's actually an excellent question, Jim. I'm going to actually provide a sort of a template or case point examples in the plan. So that is actually a really good point to bring up. But yes, that will be included in the plan. And thank you for bringing that up on the overview recommendation.
Tell me, in terms of leverage, as it were, diplomatic and financial leverage, I know Connecticut is largely driven by an urban agenda. And I know we've got our small town grants available for various types of funding, but I'm kind of wondering if perhaps there could be, as part of the stakeholder concept, maybe a legation from the General Assembly, or certainly from some of the reps in the 12 constituent towns of this consortium, who could perhaps advocate for some type of state level funding, since they appear to be so flush with funds these days, to help with improvements and help this particular effort.
I love what I'm hearing, Jim. That's sort of the same thought process I have, and I love the enthusiasm on that level, because you're thinking big.
Well, we need a little more advocacy for the rural communities here in Connecticut. And in terms of return on investment, these respective towns are getting comparatively very little on their investment in terms of state taxes back from the state of Connecticut. And we're serving a very important function, every bit as important as the function served by the more metropolitan areas.
Thank you, Jim. Those are great points. Anyone else? Let me see if I see any hands. Anybody else have any thoughts, comments for the good of the order?
Gene, I have something quick. I just wanted to say, for the trail management aspect, to be successful, because there's distributed ownership of the trail, the DEEP owns it and the towns are involved, and then volunteers can or can't be involved with it. There's three key, 3 C's: coordination, collaboration, and communication. And the thing that's working well on our side is on the hop trail is Kim is the point person at the DEEP. The volunteer group that we have put together is a point person for the volunteers. And then the towns, we've established a town rep that's the point person for the towns. So because there's a point person in all 3 areas, it allows them, it works better. So I'm not sure how much there is involved in your side, but thus far on the airline, but that's what I would key on.
Ben, okay. Good recommendation. Any other thoughts, comments, insights?
So it seemed like it's really skewed toward cyclists rather than hikers or walkers or recreation.
Tom, no, we were definitely, there's the walkability. You're seeing a lot of pictures that have bicyclists in it, but the focus is on all trail users. From I myself am looking forward to if we ever get snowshoeing. So it's understanding where are the warming spots for people who are using it during the winter. Someone who shall remain nameless came up with some great ideas for lodging And I even went further. They sent me an email, and I even went further to think of like, wow, what if in the winter, if we have warming stations for people who are cross country skiing, or they're snowshoeing, or they're fat tiring it, and then or horse riding. One of the stables in the northern section of the trail does do winter horse rides. So it's looking at multiple aspects of using the trail. I can assure you on that.
Okay, it just, your statistics at the beginning of this presentation was focused on different types of cycling.
Right. And that the statistics are not in full. That was just one slide from a workshop, from one of the workshops. It happened to look at, so I kind of cut and pasted, but the Yukon trail users did not when we did the trail counts, it did not distinguish between bicyclists and trail users. So there's walkers and cyclists and horseback riders, and their interviews were the same. And then of course we have information from both the Monique can provide from the Tackle the Trail, and then from the Ghost Run, and from the towns. And so we're going to focus in on a lot of more data than what I'm showing on the slides in the plan.
Okay,
But excellent point. Thank you for bringing that up, because some people may have had that same question. Just looking for any other comments. Yes, Monique.
One question, Jean. Will this whole idea about the buffer on the trail, to me, is so important to keep that buffer. And as I read these comments, what's next? Are you going to take this information and, share it with our town leaders who may or may not be part of this group tonight, or have been maybe?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a great, it's actually sort of a great segue to what we're going to be talking about next.
Okay.
But this is a planning process, and you will have a plan that is probably about 70 pages long, with all of the various recommendations that we've been working on, and the data and all the information that we've gathered over the last couple of years. And how people have informed the process. It's been particularly challenging because we haven't been able to meet in person. It's a lot easier when you can meet in person and have breakout workshops, but we're still doing it. And so we have a lot of information to translate, and that document will be sent to each of the towns. There'll probably be the link, and then we will send a paper copy to each of the towns, and also to trail committees and to other interested parties. It'll be listed on our website, and it'll also be listed on the new website for the 12-town airline state park trail region. And then DEP may include it on their website. I'm not sure though. But it will provide information and guidance, case examples of how to move forward. And then at the end, we will have recommendations on a step-by-step basis for each of the towns. And that would include zoning examples and zoning recommendations of how you would go about doing that if you're an interested community. Steve.
I wanted to piggyback on something that John Bolduc said earlier. It occurs to me that if we're a town by town entities, when I look at different things that happen on different parts of the trail, it was because the trail was built out sometimes with individual agreements with towns. So you might see picnic tables along one stretch and then not much in the next stretch. And again, I may be wrong with this, so somebody tell me that I'm not. But if there are existing ongoing relationships that have been reduced to paper with individual towns, so that maybe somebody agreed to mow the sides of the trail in their town in perpetuity, something like that, it would be nice to gather that information and maybe have that be an appendix.
Yes.
And as long as that's laid out, I can, in my mind, when I think through, especially the northern part, there might be folks that have very good relationships and do a lot of work. Other folks, the trail goes through, it's bounded by state land on both sides. So that particular local town may not say, well, that's just the state's responsibility, not ours.
Right.
But it gets to kind of clarify that if you're trying to work regionally on different kinds of projects, it would be nice to have that codified.
Yep. Excellent. Excellent point. Oh, I'm gonna cover that suggestion possibly in the next in a couple of slides. So, anyone else have comments? Just looking through. Okay, anyone? Just offering plenty of opportunity. Going back and forth. Okay. All right. So we will keep going. All right. So here's the layout. You asked Monique, here's what it looks like. So this is what the outline. Oh my God, we're gonna get this done. The outline looks like for 70 to 75 pages for the primary document, and then appendices we're anticipating 30 to 35 to 40 pages, somewhere in this range. So I'm just going to quietly go or loudly go through this, and I want you to give me some feedback and anything I'm missing or anything that you would like not to see in the plan. So we have our introduction and vision, which is the project mission and the acknowledgements and vision goals. And the stakeholder group will be listed in the plan. We will, acknowledge our grant funding and the matching that came and history. And then we'll go through a history of the trail and a history of the towns next to the trail, just providing a cursory overview so that, mind you, I'm doing collective thinking. So I want whoever's reading this plan, I want them to see the region. I want to see the region, and then I want them to see the town so that you're in a neighboring town. You may not know what's happening in the other town. So just providing a general overview of the history of the trail and the towns. Then we have a needs analysis. So we'll take a look at Airline State Park Trail typologies. And typologies, if you don't know what typologies are, but basically, if there was an urban setting, you would have different types of bikeway widths, or how they fit into a streetscape, or how they fit into a crossing. Our typologies, Kevin and I have to work through this, but they're going to be slightly different because we're not an urban center. So it's, except until you get to Willimantic, Wyndham area, we have very unique typologies. So it'll be a little bit different from what you might see on a bike ped plan for typologies. And then the data collection that we talked about, we'll go through that, and our field investigations. This will include everything that we pulled together and Yukon, and what I can also glean from Tackle the Trail and Monique. Our public involvement process, these workshops, our initial workshops, our newsletters, what we've tried to do. And then I'll show you what our final steps, that's still more public process to go through. And then continuity of the Airline State Park Trail. Where's the gaps? So do a quick gap analysis. We all know kind of where they are, but it'll be good to have it on paper, because a lot of people who also the goal of the plan is for those people who don't use the trail, but who you want to teach and learn about the trail. It's a page you can point to. It's something you can say, hey, we need help on this. So we're also trying to make this plan as a tool for you to use in your influencing legislators or your town officials or whoever. So we'll do a gap analysis. We'll do the segment by segment maps. Big question is whether to do this in the plan. Kevin and I are leaning toward putting this as an appendix because it's probably going to be a little big, because we're going to go town by town. And then, so you don't want to get lost. So we're thinking of putting in that section, but probably have a quick overview. And then we'll have the user visitor perspective. That'll be from our Yukon server, Yukon user data, the comments that we got back. And then we're certainly going to tap into Tackle the Trail and that user data and what they can provide us from the user perspective. Then we have the economics of the trail. So we're going to use the data that we and the insights that we had from our economic consultant and any other factors that we have from strategic economic plans in the towns, or also the COGS. The COGS have their comprehensive economic development strategies. So we'll look at those and what's the trail as an economic growth corridor. Kevin Hively, our economic consultant, has already looked at this, but we'll list those out, and we'll look at competitive factors. There are other trails in the state. So what would make this area unique? What defines this area in comparison to other trails in the state or in Massachusetts or in New York or Rhode Island? And what would make people come here? Why do people want to visit this trail? And then trail to town growth examples. So I will bring in case examples from other areas that show what the growth examples have been from trail improvements and trail usage, and how that's benefited both property values and town centers. And next chapter would be 12 towns in the context with the trail, overview of towns and the region, the conservation and green space, and priority economic centers for growth. So some of the towns, this is sort of like the farmers that I work with. Some farmers want to be right out there on the street and they want you to come and visit. And then some farmers don't want you to visit their farm at all. So we have to find out. We're still trying to collect that information. I'll tell you when I'm going to do that, but we're trying to collect that information from the towns to find out who wants to have visitors to the town and who doesn't. Some towns may not want to have an influx of visitors into their town center. So we're trying to honor that also. Infrastructure and maintenance plan. This is the one that Kevin and I went through a couple of meetings ago, town by town to region infrastructure needs, managing impacts to the natural resources, security, safety, and liability, recommended approach for maintenance, which the hint is communication, and estimating operations and maintenance overall. So we'll have that. Land use and zoning guidance, an overview of land use and zoning near the trail, typology of uses and impacts. Typology, again, is the same thing as a bikeway, but you're looking at land use impacts. So we might show a vertical of what, maybe you don't, it's sort of like a design guideline of what kind of uses do you not want next to the trail that are going to impact the trail. So it gives you kind of a vertical diagram. And then corridor and scenic protection, and then recommendations, and then marketing and branding. This is what we went through on Tuesday night. So the overview, and then a stay and play needs assessment. So what do people need to stay and play here? So I've been doing research. I have a couple of staff people who have been helping me also on other aspects, but your lodging, got lots of restaurants, but your lodging, our lodging, where do people where can they put their head down? Where can they sleep? And then town culture. So there's a great book that I'm going to reference in this chapter called Trail Culture, Town Trails. And what is it that you need to do to become a trail town so that you can be identified of when people come to the community? There's everything from murals to where do you put your bike stands, right? And look, it's simple, tiny stuff, but it's just creating a culture. I've seen in this book, I've seen situations where people will design their window fronts because you'll have a knitting shop, and they'll design their window front to reflect that they are near the airline trail or they're a community of the airline trail. I'll show examples of that in the plan. Then we have website and social media, mapping, cell phone applications. We just recently did a project with transit where we were able to do a cell phone website where you went to a QR code and you could find a lot of your point information so that there's different options. We're not going to do that, but we're going to show you what the options could be. And then wayfinding and signage recommendations. We went over this on Tuesday. So guidance for wayfinding and signage. We're not going to do a wayfinding and signage plan. That's a pretty sizable chunk of a project to do. It's an undertaking. And then trail to town wayfinding recommendations. So we'll have small maps of suggested areas. And then implementation plan, an overview, roles and responsibilities, communication and collaboration, and then summary of recommendations. Then our appendices will be formation strategies for a 12-town task force, alliance, group collaboration. Appendix B is the town by town. That's back to this segment here, the segment maps, town by town recommendations for maintenance and management. Opinion of probable costs. This is a real high level thought here. I'm not sure we can get you into details. Schedule of improvements. We will have near-term action steps and medium-term action steps that we would recommend, but that nothing's written in stone. So that is the layout. And let me see if I have. Yep. So and then so why don't I just take? I have questions and comments slide later, but why don't I take any feedback that you guys have on, because there's a lot of here, and I want to look at the slide. Anybody have any thoughts, comments on how we've structured this? Too much? Too little?
Gene, it's Phil Chester. How are you? Town
I'm
11.
good.
I put something in the chat, but I didn't really explain it well.
Okay.
I'm hoping that your plan will identify DEP's role in the trail, both maintenance and ownership. And if there isn't any maintenance or there's a lack of maintenance, I mean, be pretty honest.
Mhm.
We all sought the funds, we assisted from DEP for this study. We need to be honest about what at least all the town's expectation is from DEP, what DEP's expectation is.
Yep.
So I hope that will be in there.
Yep. You're probably going to see that in the introduction, the needs analysis, the infrastructure, wayfinding, and the 12 towns in context with the trail. You're probably going to see references to that in those chapters.
Thank you.
And Phil, I will piggyback on that. In all of our meetings with all 12 towns, Lebanon was not the only town that requested that clarification. That was a common ask in all towns, both from a high level perspective of the executives in the town being able to plan their budgets and defend the money they're putting into the trail system on a town by town basis, as well as a specific ask of the highway maintainers and park and rec staff that are out there doing that work. I think that clarification would help everybody involved, as well as the trail user, to have a more continual and global, if you will, experience rather than a town by town basis.
Mm-hmm.
That does go back to a comment that Steve had made earlier in regards to the airline north portion. That you can tell very distinctly what towns had what agreements at what point. I think defining the DEP's role would go a long way to doing away with those uniquenesses between towns in regards to maintenance activities and upkeep of the trail. So thank you for that comment. And like Jean said, that will be a recurring theme in this report.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Karen.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that. And it's not just higher level employees and the maintenance people, but volunteers, and what is their role, and how are they protected, and also what can they do? And then if there's a 12-town committee and it's a lot of volunteers, what is their authority and what is their role? So
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent point, Karen.
Just to, if I could, to piggyback on what Karen said, I think maybe the clearest and cleanest example is what happens after a major storm, when you might have folks who have volunteer relationships along the trail, and all of a sudden it becomes known either through social media or just talking to people that, hey, there's a big tree down over a mile from that road junction. And how do you get to it? Who does it? I think that there is a good concern on DEEP's part about saying that you don't want to have renegade loggers out there, but often those are taken care of by just people volunteering to go out and getting that tree out of the way because they need to turn around and ride their horse or ride their bike or even walk to get across it. And sometimes you see DEEP staff. I've seen DEEP staff come through and do a sweep of the trail. And then other times I've been seeing town folks that said, oh, we heard about a tree down here, or there's a big hole because there's a washout, and the town says, wow, we have a lot of people that use it, and the town just dumps some gravel in there. Clarifying that is a big thing to do. You can only tolerate a certain amount of stealth logging out there before you worry about people running around with chainsaws. I get that concern. But on the other hand, unless there's a regular maintenance kind of a thing, then it happens. Or every road crossing in my neck of the woods has a phone number you can call, but it's not defined as to what you should call that for. Are you calling that phone number and reporting that you're lost and you need to have some help? Are you calling it because you want to report a tree down or there's been a washout in the trail? Are you calling it because you're seeing people who are using ATVs on the trail? How do you get correct and better information to DEEP or whomever so that the correct actions can be taken down the road? I don't know that that's a very clear thing. I don't think anywhere on the trail.
This is a really good point, Steve, and Karen, and also as everybody's talking, and I began after this workshop, I began writing down all the comments and getting them into an organized fashion. I may modify this layout so that it better reflects. It's going to contain everything that you all are talking about, especially like communications. It's under communications and agreements, and but maybe it's not reflected. So I'm actually thinking about this now, is want to make sure that it's all these comments are reflected. It will be in there, but I may do a little reorganizing.
Gene, one of the things that I've looked at with that, phone number is there is no central phone number. Should there be a central phone number and email address for all 5 of DEEP's trails? It's confusing because the Colchester Spur is a town, entity, so the DEEP doesn't have anything there. But most of the trails in Connecticut that are owned mostly by the DEEP, if you had a central number that could then parse out the calls to the town for whatever agreement they have, would seem to make sense.
Yeah.
Because you can't, on a Colchester Spur, you would have to put 2 different town phone numbers, and it'd be confusing to the user. So a central number may work.
No, I agree. That's an excellent point. Karen, did you still have a question? No. Okay. So just had her hand up. Anybody else have any thoughts for the good of the order? Okay.
I have a
Yes.
question.
Hi, Dan. Yes.
Hello. The website that you showed us,
Yep.
or the potential on Tuesday was very exciting. It's not mentioned in this plan. Where does that fit in?
Yeah, the plan will have the discussion about the website and the social media and how to build on that under that 3rd column, marketing and branding strategy. If you look a couple of bullets, well, not bullets there, but it's right there. It says website and social media. So we'll take pictures and show what the media and provide the link to the website and then recommendations for how to go forward on maintaining the website.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure. A lot to digest here, huh? Okay. All right. So in terms of process, and let me just do a quick, I'm just going to make sure. Hey, also a quick question. I see a question about the Hearthstone winery. Is that, it says temporarily closed, and is it just in terms of it being seasonal?
Correct.
Okay, great, Tom. Thank you. I've been trying to, I love that. Their wine's fabulous, and what a great place to stop, and so close to the trail. So I just wanted to make sure, and I was going to call them, but good to know. So this is a diagram and a chart that we had put together. I had put together back at the beginning of the project to get so people could understand the flow of how the plan would be developed. That we had different groups and how they would inform the plan, and it's changed and modified a little bit, but most of it's held true. And then plan implementation. So I wanted to show you the slide because we're and I can certainly share the slideshow with you because it helps inform the next slide, which talks about what we were just talking about earlier, roles and responsibilities. So I had begun sketching out roles and responsibilities for each of the entities that are basically stakeholders on that trail, on the airline trail. And so we have DEP, we have local government, and I can share this out to the group at large after this presentation. I can share out this as just a single document, so you can see it as a document, and you can send me comments. So I'm happy to receive comments now, but I'm also want to send it out to you because additions, deletions, unrealistic expectations, I'm open to all sorts of insights and comments. So we have DEP, local government, council of governments, trail committees, 12-town regional organization, and then a federal state legislators. And what are some of the expectations on the part of those organizations to support the trail and support the trail region, the Airline State Park Trail region? So just to touch on, say, DEP is one thing that we talked about at the last workshop was to provide clarity on a yearly basis toward passport to park maintenance allocations and district implementation, scheduling to the regional organization. So holding a meeting, a consortium meeting once or twice a year to go over what's going on. How are we managing things from that point of contact? Who's the newest point of contact? Somebody changed, staffing changed. It's a new person that people will be calling. But an ongoing communication system is probably our highest recommendation with DEP, coming up with that flow of information between the towns, whether it's agreements, a collective agreement, or they still want to participate in town by town agreements. Those are the sort of things I would see at a beginning meeting, at the first meeting. Local government, an example would be formally appointing 1 or 2 representatives to the 12-town Airline Trail Park Committee. Let me see, another one would be economic development commissions. You know, they have not really been participating to a certain extent, but the planners who are on this call or who are part of the stakeholder group or selectmen or town managers, go out to your economic development commissions and see how they can contribute to the overall stay and play options in your communities from the airline trail. Council of Governments, that's an easy one for me. That's where they can assist with coordinating with their unified planning work program, making sure that you and the towns and the airline trail are included in the unified work planning programs that they adopt. It's about every 3 years, but sometimes they update them year to year. Those are like little details that a lot of people don't know that happens in the COGS as they coordinate how funding is spent in the state on transportation sectors. And then there's funding at the DOT level, CMAQ funding, all different types of funding that could TAP funding that could fund portions of trails maintenance or trail parking lots or things that happen on state roads. So there's a lot of coordination that can happen there with the COGS, and the COGS are particularly positioned to be able to do that. Trail committees, just the backbone of the volunteer effort, you know, continuing to advocate and plan for improved trail conditions in your local area, and then connecting with the 12-town regional organization if it's formed and that group would definitely, so a top thing would begin coordinating communications with the EEP and represent local interests in planning, maintenance, and infrastructure. And they may do something like also support with the website. And then state and federal legislators, they're primed. They're ready to help you. I've seen it happen. They're always eager to provide support for their constituency. There's some real good people out there, and they can help you find funding. They can help you find the things that you need to be able to make influence happen. So that's sort of the overall. Do anybody have any comments? Whoops. About the, or I'll go back, but any comments about the roles and responsibilities? Diane, do you have a comment? I thought I saw a little pop up. I see Karen has her hand up.
Yeah, so what I don't see here again is I don't see DEEP's on the ground maintenance, the local government on the ground maintenance, trail committee on the ground maintenance. I don't see that in here.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Good point. I will make sure it's in there. It always seems such a given, but I will make sure it's there. Steve?
Just as a point of interest, I believe that the recent election reflects a reconfiguration of some of the districts for legislative units that border the trail. And so there may be new people or people who are serving an extra town because their district got bigger, and that town is the one that touches the trail. It might be worth having an appendix of who are the legislators, senators, and representatives that they serve towns that are part of the trail.
Okay,
I know my representative now serves both Pomfret and now Hampton and a little piece of Mansfield. So he's a
okay.
good guy.
All right. We'll include it. Any other thoughts? Comments? Want to be respectful of time. Okay, so I'll go on to the next slide. That was comments and insights. Okay, so here we have the beginnings, the very beginnings. I'm working on getting. I'm working on getting a meeting together the second week in February of your town officials, and then some representatives, so that people can begin thinking about formally forming out of this task force a 12-town advisory organization. And so I will send this to you also, so you can. It's not completely filled in. People are still giving me names. The names that are on here are either names that were given to me back in March, and I'm doing a double check. And then there's newer names that are going to be probably included. There's some suggested trail partner reps that could be on this committee. And I am factoring in the comments from the last workshop, where you don't want to be so huge that it's unwieldy. It's sort of like that old pizza party, make sure when you invite people, that everybody can sit down and have a pizza, that you're not ordering, too much. But it's hard. It's hard because there's so many stakeholders along this 50 miles. How do you make sure that everybody is equally represented? So trying to figure this one out. And so we're going to bring this to a mid-February meeting with the town officials. So it'll be the 12 towns, and ask their advice. So if anybody has any thoughts or suggestions, I can bring those to that meeting. So I will send this out. And if you have any suggestions, I am open to hearing them, and I will bring them to that meeting in February. Any comments at this point?
Certainly, Gene, the East Coast Greenway would want to be involved.
Okay. All right. Put John. Any other thoughts? Okay.
What about the Pomfret Horse and Trail Committee?
The Pomfret Horse and Trail Committee?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Excellent. So I will, whoops, sorry. I will do that, and somehow my video went off. I will make sure that that's on there. Thank you, Jean. That's an insight I didn't know about. Just so much. It's going to be interesting of like all the things that we missed that we didn't capitalize on. Any other thoughts?
What about Connecticut Audubon Society Center at Pomfret?
Yes,
they use that trail a lot for taking the kids between the center and We Like It ice cream.
Yep, and they've been Sarah's been very instrumental. I can put them on the list. I just feel sometimes Sarah's over. Oh, let's put him on the list, and then we'll see what Sarah says.
Yes, she is overcommitted. That's
yeah, she is. So just trying to be respectful of everybody. But I will definitely put Connecticut Audubon on the list. An East Coast Greenway and the Pomfret Horse connection. All right, so I will send this list out, and you can all provide me comments as you need it. So here's my big question. Big question. Do we put in for a small grant for 2023? you did it for this master plan, and before I retire, I'd be willing to help you put this application together. But it's something to think about, and you don't have to answer now, but I just sort of did a quick, because I do a lot of grants. I just put together an estimate. Now, for this particular one, we went way over our match. We are way beyond 20% on the match for the grant that we did for this project. So I estimated sort of in mid-range. So it's even way more than 20%. But I'm wondering, do you guys want to do something where I may bring a suggestion to get, I mean, I would like some feedback from you as to whether to bring this proposal to that mid-February meeting. What we ended up doing for the grant last time project is that each town sent basically a support letter saying that they would apply for, they apply for the grant. It doesn't necessarily have to be administered by our Connecticut RC&D. It could be administered by this trail committee. Taking John Hankins' comments to note and John Bolduc's comments to note that sometimes, you're just working, on a wing and a prayer. There's probably a fiduciary out there who can, and RC&D probably could be a fiduciary if you needed one. We do that with the Salmon River watershed, and we've done it with others in the past. But you may find a member town that would be interested. I'd like your feedback as to whether this is something you want to go forward with. I just put in a few things just because Kim had mentioned on the last time that, yes, websites and social media expansion for 12 towns is certainly an option for an events promotion and working. So thoughts? Riz.
Well, as a practical matter,
Bruce.
being involved, obviously with vetting the rec trails applications for DEEP, as the chairman of the Connecticut Greenways Council, I suppose I can comment on this, which is that I think it's a great opportunity for it's a little bit chicken and egg in the sense that you would need some acquiescence from the 12 towns in order to, so there's a little bit of work before, that those grant applications are due March 1st. So that would be maybe a heavy lift for this year, but would it be looked on kindly by DEEP and by the scoring matrix for, and the answer is yes, I think it would, because, this is an important opportunity to do collective projects that enhance the whole trail system. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think if there's enough collective interest, to do it, you could find a fiscal agent. I say, right on.
Riz, did you have a comment?
My question was, has you as part of this group shared what you've shown us with any of the state reps at all? Have you given them a peek into what we've been working on? Only as a, like Senator Needleman, who's been very supportive, Senator, kind of Representative.
No, well, usually, yes, I actually reached out to a couple of them, but they're, and I've worked with them very closely. I know Norm and Christine Palm and, and Senator Austin, and, but they're so busy. It's almost as though, I think you've got a good point, Riz. Maybe I should invite them to this February meeting. We may have it in person. So invite them to the February meeting, or I can send this out to them. What I can do is a compilation slideshow and send it out to them just to let them know. And I really appreciate that comment. That's a great idea.
I just think, if they have at least some knowledge of it. So when they're meeting with constituents who talk about trails, they're not blindsided either. And they could talk about, well, one of the things that 12 towns are working on are, at
Mhm.
least they have some knowledge base. And that makes them look smart at the same time.
Right. Okay. Excellent point. Any other comment? Steve?
I think that you almost have to go with this next step, because if not, we will complete the work. And so I think part of, please point a way forward so that even if, if not, we'll stall a little bit. And so if it's a small amount of money to keep a group talking about next steps or trying to do some of the first next steps, then that's a good investment. And if it can be pulled off in this cycle of grant funding, that'd be great. Or maybe it could be done like the Hop River folks with a little bit of a wing and a prayer.
Mhm. We just don't want to compete against our friends on the Hop River.
They're fine. John Hankins has lots of money.
Actually, honestly, I think the perception, wouldn't be that this is competition. I think ultimately the perception would be this is, much more collegial than that. So I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay. So yeah, maybe even that section where it says first 12 town project support could be working with the airline trail the Hop River Trail on the wayfinding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what I'll do, I think, bearing this in mind, I think what I'll do, unless anybody has a strong objection, I think I'll send this out to the town officials and the town planners, and the Parks and Rec directors, as a proposal. And I'm willing to do the heavy lift because I really believe in you guys. And I think that you're right, Steve. I think there's a next step. And so unless there's any sort of major objection from this task force, I'll share it with the towns and see if we can do some buy-in. It's not like they have, and it's not as though it's in kind. So it's not like they're going to need to get something in their budget cycle to provide a match. So any major objections to that?
Yeah, that's really the key issue when you're trying to sell this to a municipality is that 20% match is easily dealt with.
Right. That's what we did last time
that-
with this larger grant process. Our Connecticut RC&D provided the match.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really the sales, that's the sales pitch, right?
Yep. So, okay, if anybody has a major objection, go ahead and email me privately. It's fine. But I think I will try to go forward, given the timeline and the fact that we'll be meeting in February. And let's see what else we got. So you already gave me your comments and insights. And then I took a snapshot of you guys and popped it on the thing. So our stakeholder group, the task force, I just wanted to let you guys know that we're in good place from a professional planning perspective. When you have workshops, we have 126 stakeholders and we've got about 10% on our workshops. If you can do a planning project and you hold a workshop and you get 10% of the population that you're trying to serve on the call or at the workshop, you're doing pretty well. You're not doing great, but you're doing pretty well. So I think we're in good space where there's definitively some representation, especially on this call. It's been great for giving insights into the plan. That's been incredibly helpful to me. And Kevin's on the call, so I know it's been helpful to him. And so our next steps for this task force are just keeping the word going with anybody that you talk to that's interested in this project, that can give us insights on the project. The doors haven't closed yet. So mid-February, I'm looking to try to do a meeting of the town officials and staff, formalizing the town task force and a process for the public workshop. 1st of March, and then we'll try and apply for this grant funding round. And 1st of March, finish the launch of the 12 town website. So the little red there, send Jean, and I'll send it to Pete. any information that you'd like to see on the website. Talk to your EDCs, talk to your business groups, talk to anybody that you want to give me data to help inform that website that you think would help inform users on the trail. Send your trail tales, send your stories. Thank you, Frank. Frank sent us a great trail tale. Appreciate it. I'm getting my son to write a trail tale from the stopping at a Willy Brew perspective. So send them in. They got it. They're fun. They're fun things for people to be interested in that we can list on the website. So last week of March would be the public workshop for the draft plan. We will publicize it mid-February and then help us get the word out to your community. So I'll give you a heads up. So look for an email from me. And then from April to May, we'll have a public comment period on that plan, encouraging comments from public stakeholders, residents. And mid-May, submit the final plan to the 12 towns, DEP and partners, and publish online, and then implement the plan moving forward. So that's where we're at. And I think that is primarily it. So I'm going to stop share because you don't need to see my calendar. So anyway, I think that I was wondering if everybody's okay. Let me just check the chat and make sure. Independent volunteer say yes. Oh, thanks, Jean. I didn't realize it had gone up to $33 an hour. Wow. And then yes, Paula has changed now. And thank you, Frank. Excellent. Kevin, Water Cure. We love Water Cure. Got to go get my whiskey, scotch. Heartstone. Excellent. Okay, we've got some great comments that I'll incorporate. Yes.
I just want to be sure I'm clear that we're going to get the website to look at so that we know what is there if we're going to add.
Yes. Pete, Harry yesterday said he's still getting the URL ready. As soon as that URL is ready, at the draft, we will forward that out to this group so that you're the task force and you can help refine anything that's on it. All right, so it is 6:36. Any other comments for the good of the order? Again, Diane, did you have any comments or is that just a shuffle of the paper? I think that was just a shuffle of the paper. Thank you, everybody. It has been an illuminating process. I hope to see you and others at the public workshop. I'm hoping to get some help from some other people, some other planners that I know who I know that Lori Giannotti's offered to help me. And then I have Amy Patrone, and then maybe we could even do a breakout. That's some sophistication for an online workshop, but I'm going to try and learn real fast. But in the meantime, I'll look for a public workshop announcement. And thank you again. Keep those comments coming to me. I've gotten some and they've been phenomenal. I really appreciate them. And thank you again.
Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend, everybody.